Bethesda just released a flurry of retrospective videos for the Fallout 25th anniversary. This time, Bethesda kind of runs the gambit with videos talking about a variety of Fallouts, from New Vegas to Fallout Shelter. There is a lot to cover, so let's get started.
We had finished Fallout 3, and we're always like going into the next project, even before the one comes out. And so we had started Skyrim, which everybody knows. And then Fallout 3 comes out, and it was a really, really, big hit for the company. And they're like, okay, so what's the follow-up? And I was like, well, we're doing Skyrim, so it'll be Fallout 4. And there was a push like, well, we could, we have this now. We've made this successful. Let's not let the chance pass by. We should do a big expansion pack or something like that. And are there companies that we could do it? And we knew the folks at Obsidian, and it was sort of immediate. Well, there's only one group that we would really want to do this. And it actually started as a big expansion pack for Fallout 3. And I felt really strongly it should be its own game.
As we started talking with Bethesda about doing Fallout New Vegas, one of the things we needed to do was figure out, well, who was going to run the project, who was going to be the game director. And it was a very, very quick conversation because Josh Sawyer works for us at Obsidian. And it's interesting, he's sort of this second generation of Fallout lovers.
My first exposure to Fallout was in, I think, 1997. It was when the original game came out. I was in college, and I kind of let it take over my life. I thought it was incredible. And I remember going online and reading something about like an evil ending. And I was like, whoa, wait, there's a different ending. And I looked into what was required for it, and it was a really negative karma. So instead of replaying the game, I actually went back through and just like murdered a bunch of people so I could see the evil ending. And so, yeah, I loved it.
It was my responsibility to basically make sure that the Obsidian had what they needed to start that project. We're heads down on Skyrim. We don't have any resources to really be able to help you. We're going to give you everything. So we gave them the entire engine for Fallout 3. We gave them the whole game, all the assets. We gave them everything.
And so my approach was, okay, we're not going to really deviate tremendously from what Bethesda did. Clearly, many people liked this game, Fallout 3. So let's look at what we can bring to it that feels unique from our perspective without trying to reinvent the wheel.
How do we make it unique? How do we make it feel like its own game? Doubling down on this idea of you really feel like you are surviving this wasteland. Even to the extent that we put this mode in that when you leave the first building, you're offered to go into survival mode where you have to drink water and you have to eat food and drugs do all this extra stuff to you.
And then in terms of the story itself, I really wanted to bring back characters and factions or descendants of characters from the original games and, do the classic Obsidian, presentation of there are these factions that are vying for control. You come into the problem and you have to kind of pick a way to go through it and think a lot about your own values and deciding who you want to support or don't want to support.
Caesar's Legion he invented as this group. They're horrible. I mean, they're just horrible.
You are the courier Lord Caesar has spoken of. The slaughter begins then.
But they have a sort of an ethos. They have who they are in this world. And that's how he brought it. He's like, well, I'm going to let you, if you want to side with him, you side with him. If you don't, you want to kill him, kill him. And he kept to that through the whole development. And I think that's maybe one of the reasons why people love it so much, is they can go into this Fallout world and just be who they want to be.
I have a lot of respect for the work that they did on that game. That was really hard to do, to take someone else's engine and technology and tools and build something fantastic with it.
I love these retrospectives. This one was about New Vegas, and while it did not rank high on my list, I love it because it is more Fallout. It's interesting to note that New Vegas was originally supposed to be an expansion for Fallout 3, but Todd Howard stepped in and said, no. This needs to be its own game. It takes a tremendous amount of trust for a company to hand over all of its assets to another company just for the sake of making one game. This is exactly what Bethesda did with Obsidian. Because Bethesda was completely focused on Skyrim, they did not have the resources to help with the creation of New Vegas, but they did have the tools. So, with that, they gave Obsidian everything they had, from the engine to the assets from Fallout 3. This made it very easy for Obsidian to make a game because they didn't have to, as Josh Sawyer said, reinvent the wheel. This allowed Obsidian to really lean into what they do best, which is tell a story. While it was hard to take an engine that they knew very little about and make a game on the same level as Fallout 3, it did give them the freedom to focus on the story and make a truly enriching game that adds to Fallout lore. I'm glad that Bethesda did this retrospective because it sheds light on the creation process. The next video talks about the American dream. Let's take a look.
Fallout has this, what happens to the American dream when it can go bad. We felt setting it in DC was a good backdrop for the kind of tone and story that we wanted to set.
I'm a huge gamer. I've played a lot of games. I still do. And at the time, I had one thought, and that was, I don't think I've ever played a game set in Washington, D.C. Once we decided to set the game in Washington, D.C., I was looking at a map and looking at features, and I saw the Jefferson Memorial in the tidal basin. And I thought, well, if we turn the Jefferson Memorial into a giant water purifier, I think that's the story. I think that's the hook. That's the mission. Project Purity, we called it. We've got these mutants and this government faction and all this, but at the end of the day, people need clean drinking water. Without it, they're going to die.
We were figuring out how we're going to ruin this city and how we're going to make this fun for the player to explore. Our office is in the suburb of DC, so it was a short trip to go and check out the real sites. And there's a certain level of fun and creative satisfaction in taking the real environment you're living in and destroying it, basically. Taking like these iconic buildings in downtown DC and leveling them.
I remember the stories of Matt Carafano, our art director, going down and taking photos, and then the security guards being like, "What are you doing?"
Someone was stopped at one point, like, "What are you doing?" Well, I'm picturing this being blown up. Like, you need to get out of here.
While we're working on DC, we realized that we had not done the White House yet, and we didn't really have room on the schedule to do the White House. We had done a lot of the other landmarks and did ruins of them scattered throughout the city, but that was kind of a major one. And we were kind of running out of time. Like, well, what do we do? It's like, just put a crater. The White House would have been the first thing they took off. So let's just wipe it. It doesn't exist here. It was sort of an Indiana Jones, shoot the guy at the whip kind of moment for us, but it did the trick, and I think people got a kick out of that.
What a great story. Fallout 3 is special to me, and learning the story behind its creation has been a favorite pastime of mine. It's especially interesting to me that they made the decision on the main story based on the fact that the Jefferson Memorial is in a tidal basin, and as such, it could be used as a water purifier. I also love the very real look that was given to the various landmarks. All through the video, we saw the real-life pictures versus the in-game location, and boy did they nail it. Not only that, they were able to bring the level of destruction to life by making those structures look just damaged enough that it was believable and that the area had been hit hard by the bombs. The story of a Bethesda employee being told to leave after being confronted by authorities was kind of funny. If it was explained the way that it was portrayed in the video, then the person made poor judgment in word choice, but it is still funny nonetheless. I like the choice that was made for the White House. It does stand to reason that both in real life and in the Fallout universe, that the White House would be a big target for our enemies. Bethesda using this was the right choice, and they did a good job as far as the level of destruction. This leads us to the next video, where we take a look at the mobile game, Fallout Shelter.
Fallout Shelter was one of Todd's ideas, one of his many ideas.
Back in 2007, we were making Fallout 3, and the iPhone came out, and we just fell in love with it. And we played games on it all the time. And we kept talking about making our own game.
He had an inspiration, and he referenced the live-action trailer that we had done for Fallout 3 as part of his pitch.
If you watch the trailer, the main trailer for Fallout 3, it pulls out, you see little people living in the vault. this 2D kind of cartoony thing. And I was like, that's the game right there.
Congratulations, friend. You have been selected as a Vault Tech Overseer.
So we actually started working on it. We're like, this could work. We could make this cool phone game, bring the game to a whole lot more people, and give people something to play when we announce Fallout 4 while they're waiting for it to come out.
So Craig Lafferty and I had offices next door to each other. We shared a wall. Craig would insist on listening to Shelter with the volume turned up in his office all day long. I'm trying to have important conversations with artists, and all I hear is click, 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 click. By the end of Shelter, I wanted to murder Craig Lafferty.
There was a lot of people in the company looking at each other like, this could be really big. Like, this is really fun and really good.
So we worked with Apple. Todd was on stage, said, available tonight, you can download the game.
It is called Fallout Shelter.
I remember calling people on the phone at Apple saying, all right, we're ready, push the button, and then crossing our fingers. We'd never done anything like this before. Woke up the next morning and it debuted at #1 on the App Store. So it was a huge hit. It was a big surprise and people loved it. Then once it took off, we knew that it was going to be a thing for Fallout Shelter, and mobile was clearly a part of our future.
Probably 200 million players, more players than any game I've done combined. And it's still going.
Fallout Shelter. Play for free now.
I was not surprised to learn that Fallout Shelter was Todd Howard's idea. I loved that he looked back to some of the promotional materials for inspiration for the game. Truthfully, looking back on it, that was a great choice, and without ever knowing it at the time, the people who made that little cartoon were foreshadowing the future game. I really liked the background stories about the creation of the game, and Shelter was a huge success. As Todd Howard said, it was the most successful game he had ever been involved with. Personally, I like this one too because it's just different enough to make things interesting, and I can play it whenever without having to be locked down at my computer. The next video talks about Fallout 76, a game that has kept me at my computer for years now.
At a certain point, Todd and everybody decided, hey, they want to make a multiplayer Fallout game.
How do we create a more shared experience that builds on some of the ideas from our other games and creates basically a giant sandbox for players to come in, experience our stories, and tell their own stories.
As you venture out into this new American frontier, some of your fellow survivors may not be neighborly.
We have fans that have been begging for multiplayer for years, right? But there are other fans that just love their single-player Fallout.
I like to do things different. You have to push yourself and say, out of your comfort zone and say, hey, we think there's something here. We're going to go at it and do our best.
And this was a case where I think, we kind of needed our players to help us along the way.
When I look at the 76 community, I feel especially grateful to them. They stuck with us.
Even though it had a rough launch, there were a lot of people playing and saying, no, I think there's something here, keep at it.
When we first ventured out after launch, there were no other characters. There were no other than players. There were no NPCs. And the story was really just kind of going through and putting together pieces and understanding what happened. And there was this horrible scorch plague that had hit. And then, because it's a live service game, we keep layering on and adding more stories. So then Wastelanders comes out and we add more. People show up. They're coming back to Appalachia because now they realize this place is pretty awesome. It's not the hellscape that everything else is around. So you have raiders and settlers and all these factions coming in, and we tell their stories and build on that, and then continue to add other factions. For example, we have added the Brotherhood of Steel Returned, and that ties into the first Fallout games, right? And these folks came from the West Coast, and we had to tell their story. And with 76, the story will continue to unfold for years. It's a live game. We can continue to iterate on it. We can listen to our fans, get their feedback, and work with that.
We were able to find the right people in the right spots for that project. Today, it has a very loyal audience, a big audience. It's phenomenal the things that they're able to do with that game.
One of the things that we try to do, and that I think is a really good thing, is you can say to somebody hey, what's your favorite Fallout game? and you'll get a different answer, right? That each of them is unique, and 76 is very, very unique, but there are a lot of people who say, no, this is my favorite one. I want to play with my friends. These are the things that I want to do. And having that ongoing connection with your audience, you know, every week, day to day, does change in a positive way how your studio thinks about games, as opposed to putting out a game and then going away for 3 or 4 years and then showing it. So it's a much more active kind of development process.
Fallout 76 has people on all sides of the coin, from people who just hate it to those who just love it, and everything in between. Now, no matter where you fall with this game, it truly has something for everyone, even if you don't see it right away. Even though the game did have a difficult launch, players have stuck around and continue to have a great time with this game. This is something that is reiterated throughout the entire video. Todd Howard said it best: if you ask people which Fallout is their favorite, you will get different answers, and the reason is that each Fallout game is different and unique. I am very much of the mindset that if you play each version of the game, you will find things that you like and dislike about each one. There is nothing wrong with that, because it is natural to feel that way. Speaking of feelings, one thing that every Fallout does well is the music. Music has a way of evoking feelings, and this next clip talks about that.
Music-wise, I definitely had the memory of playing Fallout, the original Fallout, and Mark Morgan's score in that game, which to me is one of the things that made it so haunting and creepy and dark. And to me, it just adds this wet, heavy blanket of despair to the whole landscape of the game. So I at least had that in the back of my mind before we started any scoring work with Inan Zor on Fallout 3. What Inan Zor brings to the table in terms of setting a tone or mood for the Fallout games really stems from the main theme, which is always the initial piece that we get to work on together. The melody and the chord changes within that main theme end up echoed throughout the whole game. It's kind of like a color palette. That's how I always think of it. He is establishing sort of the key art or reference color palette for much of the game. And then we're threading that throughout as much as possible to sort of bring that flavor to other parts of the game, to hint back at the main theme. Certainly it's very dark. I think the Fallout 3 main theme is the darkest, the grimmest of any of the ones we've done since. But you notice the change, I think, especially with Fallout 4, it has a much warmer kind of core to it. Warmer use of chords. It's got much more of like a hopeful heart. I'll talk with Inan about, hey, let's write music for this region. Here are a couple of ideas. I love that he's always willing to try it, and there's a fun back and forth between the two of us. We always get to evolve what we did before into something else. That alone, is reason enough to always look forward to working with Inan again.
Inan Zor has been part of Fallout since Fallout 3, and I can't imagine any of those games without his influence in them to some degree. His musical scores are legendary, and when you just listen to those scores, you really get taken on a roller coaster ride. For me, the music in every Fallout game has been instrumental in its success as a franchise and will continue to be in the future. Now you might think this is where the episode ends, and I would agree with you, but then we'd both be wrong. No, along with the retrospective videos, Bethesda also released another article. As the month-long celebration comes to a close, there are still some things that need to be shared. First, in 76, the spooky Scorched are back, and we can find these special Scorched until November 8th. Just like last year, there will be special challenges that involve trick-or-treating at each other's camps during the same time frame. Starting tomorrow, October 25th, a special Fallout 25th Anniversary challenge will be going on until November 8th. Every day, there will be a new item in the Atomic Shop for free, and there will be a daily challenge to complete using said item. There will also be a weekly challenge that, once complete, will reward a unique item. Also, to round out the year, if you have Amazon Prime, you will be able to claim free items from the Fallout 25th Anniversary Bundle. This can be claimed from November 2nd till February 2nd of next year. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate members can also get this bundle through Game Pass perks from October 27th till December 27th. Bethesda also released some never-before-seen concept art for Fallout 76. Links to these articles are in the description below. Fallout 4 is getting a next-gen upgrade, and that will be available next year. This update will be available for Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, and will feature higher frame rates, quality 4K resolution, and even some new Creation Club content. Why Bethesda has decided not to follow the same treatment Skyrim got is what I'm questioning. If they went through the trouble to update the game, why not just take that one step further and include all the Creation Club content as a paid update for those who want all the Creation Club content as well? For those who don't, would just get the base update for free. That's just my 2 cents worth. At any rate, Fallout 4 getting a next-gen update is awesome anyway. That alone might be enough to get me back into the game. I just wish that Bethesda would take that one step further and start remaking the older Fallouts in the Creation Engine. Maybe one day, Todd will break down and let it happen. With that, this news episode comes to a close, and I want to hear from you. What did you think about these retrospective videos? Did you find any of them particularly interesting? Are you excited about Fallout 4 getting a next-gen upgrade? Sound off in the comments below. While you're at it, like, subscribe, and share. As always, I'm just glad you stopped by, and I'll see you in the next one.